at City Hall going through hours of testimony and hours of reports to give you feedback, whether it's the Planning Commission, the Senior Commission, the Neighborhoods Commission, the Airport Commission, Parks and Rec Commission. So really we need to value their input, otherwise why are we asking them to volunteer? The difficulties is really one that lies, I think, with the elected officials. And it's a matter simply of making sure that you look to that commission and check in with that commission. One of the biggest complaints that we have at San Jose City Hall is that we often take action before we even heard from the commission, or the referral hasn't even gone to the commission for them to give you input prior to us taking an action. And that's really a failure of process and, I think, leadership. So I'm just as guilty as any elected official. I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus. You oftentimes get caught up in the job and you're reading the reports and you vote, and at the, after the fact, when one of the commissioners approaches you and said, look, that never even went to our commission, and you're kicking yourself because you didn't refer it out. I think it's extremely important, whether it's the Airport Land Use Commission or the Airport Commission, to make sure that we're checking in with you. My experience goes, again, way back to 1994 when we were, I think this is more 2000, when Beshoff Motors was coming in, and there was some feedback from that particular commission about another land use or an active use within the flight zone or near the flight zone. So those are the kind of things that we really need to be aware of. And as a city council member, you made it very clear, and it's 100% right, and the question itself is where you are a jack of all trades and a master of none. So we have to be very certain that we're listening to those folks who are experts in their field.
Thank you. This question, Don, will go to you first. Reid Hillview is the home of San Jose State's aviation program and its flight training activities. This program offers the only accredited four-year aviation degree in the state, and you can see several members of that program there in the back. The current staff proposal is to convert half the properties currently in use by aviation businesses to commercial properties, terminate all existing leases in December 2021, and establish 2 new aviation businesses and brand new leases on the next day with no backup or transition plan. The airport tenants and aviation business owners believe acting on this proposal is likely to result in shutting down all current aviation businesses at Reid Hillview, including San Jose State's flight training program. What do you think is the best course of action to continue and strengthen aviation services at Reid Hillview? And if you don't know, what resources would you use to determine that best course of action?
I wouldn't support that business plan as it's proposed the way you just described it. And let me do a caveat, and it's not for me to evade and be non-committal. We've been through this campaign for a year and a half now. We've done forum after forum, and we've been asked to take positions. And in some cases, you're winging it, such as now. In other cases, you've done your homework or your research. And you have to take positions. But the other part of this is I've always got to be cognizant, and I always have been as a city council member, is we do have professional staff. And whether you may think they're biased or not, we have to look to them often in terms of professional staff providing us a recommendation. So what I always tell folks is, here's my position as it stands right now. But I need to hear one from the community, stakeholders, and then finally, when that report comes to me before I take a vote, what that recommendation is from staff. I've been a very independent voice in the city council. So for me, I've gone against staff time and time again, because I'm always putting my hat on first that I'm representing the public. That is you. So I wouldn't be supportive of that. I really do believe that this facility and this airport is really death by 1,000 cuts. I truly believe that there hasn't been an investment in this enough, and they're really just letting it sit and wallow. I know there's a political question around it, and a lot of folks don't want to talk about it in terms of the surrounding community and elected officials in this particular area talking about closing it. And their job is to represent their residents. So I'm not taking anything away from that. But we really have to call the question, which is, are we going to let this facility just disappear and go away? Or are we going to make this a regional facility here in the middle of Santa Clara County, Silicon Valley? This should be an asset. We should be investing. I think there's great opportunities for a return on that investment.
I think we've spent a good amount of time together. I was actually going to use that same phrase of death by 1,000 tiny stabbings. That's exactly what I have. In fact, I was talking with a couple of people earlier before the forum started about ways in which there could be much better community engagement and support for ways to build up the stability and the security of the airport here. One of the pieces that we were talking about is bringing community members in more, making sure that they feel not alienated by the airport, but empowered by it. Involved, whether it's from talking with one gentleman about maker labs and opportunities that he has, he's working on something for flight safety that I didn't fully understand. But inviting students and neighbors in to be part of the work and the action that's here so that it really is viewed as an asset, I think is a tremendous, would be a tremendous advantage to starting to shift some of the controversy. And again, to answer the question directly, I would determine the best course of action after consulting with a wide variety of sources. And what I would ask for above all is transparency. If there were a compelling reason to close the airport, let's be clear about it and not hide behind actions that don't directly announce that intention, but continue to make the airport less and less economically and educationally viable. And if we're not going to close it, we should be looking to maximize the value, not only to the aviation community, but to the thousands of residents who live adjacent or very near the airport. This in-between stage lacks transparency and really doesn't seem to be working for anyone involved.
Okay, this next question will go to Susan first. In September, the County Tulip Committee was presented with two options for ongoing operations and management of the county airport. County staff were sent back to work on the third option by Supervisor Cortese. At a high level, these options were, one, to immediately apply for FAA and state grants for both airports and attempt to repurpose portions of the airport property for commercial development. The second was to immediately apply for FAA and state grants for San Martin Airport and issue a policy statement that the county will not be applying for grants for Reid Hillview. And the third option was to shut down Reid Hillview and significantly expand the aviation facilities in San Martin. The Airports Commission and the airport supporters obviously support the first option with some changes. Which option would you vote for, or would you recommend another option, and why?
Well, I certainly don't think that the third option is a good one, and I haven't had a conversation with either Mike Wasserman or Dave Cortese, so I don't know how they arrived at their very different opinions. If this becomes, or if and when I should say this becomes an agenda item, I'll look forward to hearing both of their opinions at a public meeting, because of course I can't confer with both of them without violating the Brown Act, and asking a lot of questions. These supervisors have history with this issue, with the airport, with the commission, and it would really be important to me to learn that history as well as to consult with staff and commissioners and other advocates before taking a vote.
My apologies, I did look at the questions and I missed that one. Can you repeat, not the whole thing, but just the first one that you mentioned?
The first option?
Yes.
Yeah, the first option was to immediately apply for FAA and state grants for both airports and attempt to repurpose some portions of airport property for commercial development.
So I'm with that one with modifications as well. And the commercial development, it does sound like a good idea, and I know the county's trying to shift towards a little bit of more getting a return on these assets and some economic development opportunities. But again, we have to first make a commitment to this facility and seeing it grow as an airport if we're committed to it. And then if there's some lands that we could use for commercial purposes, I'm always open to that. But that wouldn't be first on my list. So for me, it's about reinvesting in both these facilities. We're not going to have these opportunities again in terms of regional airports. And I know the GA community is very strong. I've been walking and knocking, talking to folks in the community, and surprised at how many actually pilots there are just throughout. You always thought, I'm not going to suggest this, and I hope there's not a tape going, it was a rich person's game. Well, it's not. I mean, these are middle-class individuals who have GA planes, and they enjoy it, and some do it for work. So I think it's really an important asset to keep here, and it's one that I wouldn't, I'll reiterate one last time and make it really clear to you folks, that's one I wouldn't like to see us lose.
Okay, this is the last preset question. If there's any other questions that people would like to ask, Sam has some already, but if there's any other ones, please get to Sam in the next 4 minutes. Okay, this question is going to Don first. Don, we expect Supervisors Travis and Cortese, and this is an expectation, we don't know for sure, but we're expecting these two supervisors will vote to shut down Reid Hillview either immediately through option 3 or after 2031 through option 2. Supervisor Wasserman is a very strong airport supporter, and we don't know how Supervisor Simonian will vote. Given this scenario, would you vote to shut down Reid Hillview or vote to continue using the property as an airport in perpetuity? Or, and then that's part 1. Part 2 of the question is, as a new county supervisor, since you're the new person on the block, under what circumstances would you vote against the majority opinion of the board?
So can I ask for clarification on part two? And is that question specific to aviation issues or just in general?
It's in general.
Okay. So one, I've answered probably 6 times, and you're tired of hearing me on that one. Two, it's an interesting job, and oftentimes there are political pressures to vote a particular way, either with the majority or with special interests. And I am a horrible politician, and it's my worst asset, but it's also my greatest strength. Because I take votes that I know I'm going to have political repercussions. And I've stood by them over and over again, and not back down. So it's one that I'm very proud of. And in some cases, I've been called the lone wolf because I'm willing to either go against staff recommendation or the council majority, whatever that may be. And it's not about business interests or labor interests. It's about what I feel the public is expecting of me. When I put that hat on, and the reason I ran for city council and school board in the first place is representing you.